Hello, my name is Nitai Duranja, and we're continuing our series of short videos on different chapters from the book Education for Life by J. Donald Walters. So today we're going to focus on a chapter called Is Every Child an Einstein? So this carries from the previous chapter. This is chapter 12. This carries over from the previous chapter, chapter 11, where the topic of progressive development is introduced. And in that chapter, we see that there's a spectrum of consciousness that students move through, not in a straight line. There are many ups and downs and changes from days off or inspired days, but consciousness basically goes from heavy, which is just a very lethargic consciousness, to ego-active, contractive, which is a very self-centered, selfish type of consciousness, to ego-active, expansive, which is helpful, but usually helpful in a kind of a narrow way. And then finally light, where it's a very expansive, free-flowing state of consciousness. And so the challenge comes up of what do you do when inevitably you have a mixture of those consciousness levels in your class. The basic problem remains how to educate everyone without depriving anyone of the best education he can absorb. How? Quite simply, by enlisting the help of lighter consciousness students to uplift the heavier ones. What every teacher ought to do is to assiduously cultivate leadership qualities in any student who shows an inclination to reach down and help others below him on the ladder to grow toward true emotional maturity. So this kind of is a comment on, would it be better to separate the kids by level, what the level of consciousness they're currently showing? You have separate classes for students at a light level or separate classes for a heavy level. But what Mr. Walters is saying here is, no, that's difficult to do, very complicated, and there's a lot of problems involved in that. But if you have everybody together, what you can count on is that when students are in a lighter state of consciousness, they want to help. They're looking for opportunities to. And those are kind of the stories that I want to share. So as a teacher, you keep an eye out for that. That's one of the things that's in in the back of your mind. You keep looking for, when does a student manifest that lighter consciousness? So I had one, this is now high school, we're talking about high school level now. So we had one boy who was a senior one year, his senior year. And I knew from working with him previously that he had a light state of consciousness. He was a little on the shy side. He didn't like to put it out there, but my job as a teacher was to put him in a situation where it would draw out his strengths and give him a chance to express that consciousness. So we had we call it a kirtan band in the high school at that time. Quite successful, very inspiring. The students gathered together and they had different instruments and they played chants, and we performed many times actually in that era. Well, what had happened though the year before was that the girl who had founded that group and was the inspiration for it had graduated, which is what happens in high school, everybody graduates. So we came into this new year and we needed a new leader. So I decided to put this young man in charge. We'll call him Peter. And I just very simply he had been in the band as a member before, so he knew all about it. And I just said, Susan's gone now, and we need a new leader. Would you take on that role? Would you be the leader for the group? And he thought about it a little bit, and he says, yeah, I can try to do that. And so that was all the guidance I gave him. The rest of it was up to him. I was trusting on his natural inspiration to come through. So what I watched is that there was about 15 students in the group. He made an appointment with every single student in that group to work with them and to help them develop their own musicality, whether they were playing an instrument or singing or whatever it was. And I don't know how many hours he spent, but it was a significant amount of time. And he just got the whole group to uplift their consciousness. And so when we came back and we started performing again, we didn't miss a beat. The people who had graduated the year before, they had done a wonderful job, but now the next set of students were ready. But it was only because of Peter's consciousness that way. And it was quite impressive to watch. It was exactly what the book says. The book says, tune into the people giving the light energy and give them the freedom to express it. Well, much more recently, I've been working in India the last several years, bringing these ideas into the public schools there. And I watched it again. We were just establishing the tone for what we call the living laboratories. They're small groups of students, somewhat mixed in age, between 3 or 4 years at a time. So this was a group of about 12 students, and we had just learned what we call the superconscious living exercises. And they have movements with them. They have affirmations. I am awake and ready, marching in place. I am awake and ready. I am positive, energetic, enthusiastic, jumping at the end, and a few more like that. And the children were interested. It was something new. There's a lot of movement. They loved that, and they like to make the affirmations. But it wasn't, hasn't set in yet. I was looking for a way to kind of make it their own, so it wasn't just teacher directed. And I didn't know the children very well in that group. But I noticed one boy, and he just looked like he had a light consciousness. And just his eyes were, he had bright eyes. He had a good posture. He wasn't being overly assertive. He just was, he was attentive. He was attentive to the whole thing around him, looking for a way to kind of contribute. So, but I just called on him, and I said, I don't think I even didn't know his name, but I just said, we've been doing these exercises to try to uplift our consciousness. Can you think of anything, another exercise besides these? And so we're just kind of turning the keys over to him. And he thought very, quietly for a second, and then he just said, yes, I can do one. And I said, okay, why don't you lead it? He says, and so he just took his arms, he goes, I am complete in my soul. I am complete in my soul. This is a 9-year-old, okay? And he did it so gracefully and such heart quality that all the kids were just riveted on him, just watching him. And then we got everybody else to come up and do it. And at that point, the exercises became theirs. They weren't doing it because the teacher told them to. They were doing it because their peers were inspiring them, and they were, excited about it, and took it on a whole other dimension. So that's what light consciousness can do. The teacher, one myth in education, one misunderstanding is the teacher should always be the center of attention, which is not the case. At worst, it's the teacher stands there and lectures, and the students are supposed to take notes. What we're doing in Education for Life is completely different. We're trying to empower the students to be able to express these ideas themselves in their own way. And so by letting the light consciousness show that, I say light consciousness because I don't want to just say there are light children and heavy children. Most children fluctuate, and they're light some of the time, and they might be ego active some of the time, etc. But when they are in that light consciousness, the teacher's job is to get out of the way, to turn it over, and to encourage and to make use of that consciousness coming from the children. It'll be much more powerful. So I hope that you can make use of that. Thanks.